again, Heath, and Heath is also the CEO and CMO at TraitWare, so you have the right guy to ask the right questions. Right.
Yes.
So, right. And before I dive into talk a little bit about Citrix Ready, just a couple of housekeeping items. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please use the question panel in the GoToWebinar panel. We'll be continuously monitoring throughout the webinar and take them all up at the end of the webinar. And also, we are recording this webinar, and we'll be reaching out to you on your registered email addresses with the recording. And in a few days, it should also be up on YouTube. Right. So a little bit about Citrix Ready. As you can see, it's the #1 source to evaluate verified partner products. And what that really means is for customers who already have Citrix or who are planning to purchase Citrix and want to ensure that the products which they already have in their environment is Citrix Ready validated, it's compatible, it's interoperable. This is what we do. We validate third-party solutions on Citrix's workspace. It goes through thorough verification testing, and that kind of provides confidence and the joint compatibility and the joint solution offering. And through the online catalog and our Citrix Ready branding program, customers can easily find and build trusted infrastructure. You can visit Citrix Ready Marketplace at the below link, and if you do a quick search on TraitWare, you can see all the Citrix's products it's validated on with versions. All right, so let's kind of dive in. Why do we want to move away from passwords and go the way passwordless? So before I before we start demoing how TraitWare's passwordless solution can integrate with Citrix virtual apps and desktops, let's really talk a few points about why passwords lead to inevitable compromises. What are the challenges and things like that. So in the current day, and with most cyber attacks beginning with compromised passwords, organizations definitely need better way to authenticate users and provide access to critical apps, services, and data. And one of the surveys conducted by Ponymon in 2019, it said that 57% of respondents expressed a preference for passwordless logins. And we'll dive into why we received such a huge response to go passwordless. Obviously, the de facto standard, which has been passwords for a really long time for access and authentication, has outlived its usefulness. And though almost every digital experience requires passwords in some form or the other, they have really become a severe liability. And a couple of surveys, again, conducted by McKinsey Digital and Security Magazine tells this. An average US consumer tries to keep track of over 14 different passwords, which they use across all of their websites interchangeably. And for a business user, it's even more. It's even more than 100 passwords which they have to manage, remember, use it to access their business applications and URLs. So stolen and compromised passwords are now behind 80% of the data breaches today, and these trends are really unsustainable. and definitely lead to compromises. So when it comes to passwords, let's the four key points why or the four key challenges faced by the passwords are obviously the password fatigue, where users grow tired of creating new passwords for different services and resist being forced to change passwords periodically. And they often rely on simplistic passwords that are easy to crack. And password reuse is very common, right? And that itself results in potential cascading breaches. Forgotten passwords, that obviously results in high service level or high tech support costs, where most of the help desks are uh, bombarded with password reset requests. Gartner now estimates that resetting password comprises of over 20 to 50% of all help desk calls. And similarly, phishing attacks, their main attack vector is to capture login credentials. And with everybody going using mobile phones and their tabs to access their business applications, it kind of becomes easier for them to send bogus pages on smaller screens, and it's difficult to detect for a common users. And obviously the stolen credentials are a huge market in the dark web. So Heath, do you have some points to add to this?
I think you've covered, most of the pain points between the risks and the costs associated with the way passwords are currently being used. Looking forward, outside people's opinions of where the market is going, obviously, Aunt Allen at Gartner believes that by 2022, 60% of large enterprise and over 90% of mid-sized enterprises will implement passwordless methods in more than 50% of their use cases. So passwordless may not be able to be used everywhere, but we're looking at how do we reduce friction and risk and cost everywhere that we can. And we believe that we can get actually to more than 50% of the use cases today. As we grow in our relationship with Citrix, we definitely can do more than 50% of the use in the Citrix environment. And then just recently in the last 2 weeks, Ann Johnson, the corporate vice president of cybersecurity at Microsoft, wrote an article piece centered around zero trust. But something that stuck out of that was that the first recommendation that they make to anyone is that they must use multi-factor authentication 100% of the employees 100% of the time. And we believe at TraitWare that the way to do that is to make the multi-factor authentication inherent in the technology, which is why we're excited to share what we can do for Citrix in bringing you not only a passwordless technology, but it brings the MFA inherent in your login while reducing the pain point and friction for the user. So you've done a great job of, I think almost everybody on the call probably understands that passwords need to die, and that's why they're attending today. And so you've done a great job of just validating that in the space. And obviously there's other thought leadership in the space that agrees that MFA needs to be used 100% of the time, and that passwordless is a way to get there.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Heath. And now let's dive into why Citrix and TraitWare could be a better together solution for you to go passwordless. Right. So just so before we move on, why this is just a representation of the spread of Citrix, and as you can see, the top 10 of the government, healthcare, insurance, education, you name it. Top 10 of those organizations use Citrix, and our customer base is currently over 400,000 customer organizations which have shown confidence in using Citrix solutions. So that's something I wanted to put in there on why customers depend on using Citrix, and why most of these top organizations rely on Citrix for their remote access needs. And let's see how it all started, right? So as you can see, all of us used to have this one desktop or laptop where we had all our applications and softwares and the URLs, everything installed right there, and basically that's the machine from which we used to get started. And slowly it moved on to the browser-based applications. These lightweight browser-based web apps, where the apps were hosted in their private data centers, and that kind of proliferated, right? It increased or it led to the burst of SaaS applications. And within a few years, the traditional monolithic apps started to migrate to a central hosting, which we all call now the cloud. And over several years, the applications have transformed, and so has the nature of work. Today, in a cloud and the mobile-first world, PC is no longer the center of the universe to get your work done. In fact, your company's most important intellectual property does not even live in your data center. So with such proliferation of resources and in the cloud comes a challenge of network, user, and IP security. The traditional security served us well for older on-premises world, and just drawing a firewall in between outside and inside of the corporate network wouldn't work anymore. And now the resources are all over the internet, and how would you even think about having a firewall around the cloud? And IT over time has deployed all these point solutions to deliver applications, separate solutions for providing access to these apps, as well as separate solutions for securing data and device and networks for both internal and external threats. And it's great for vendors selling point products, but when you take a look at how our data centers and infrastructure in general have developed over the years, it is definitely chaotic from a CISO's perspective. And this is only setting up CISOs and the security groups in the data centers for failure. And this is where Citrix kind of picks up, right? On the flip side from the previous slide, Citrix, we provide all these different security services, which is natively inbuilt into Citrix's workspace. And what's more is we welcome our customers to bring their own identity, like TraitWare here with us today, and they can choose how they want to log into Citrix's virtual apps and desktops. They can use MFA, they can go passwordless, and many others. And before I hand it over to Heath, I just wanted to represent what Citrix Workspace looks like after the users log in. So as you can see, they have all their business critical apps and their emails, their desktops, everything in one place. And these could be hosted either on premises, these could be cloud hosted, or SaaS apps, their desktops either on the cloud, on premises, or even the Windows WVD. Their file shares, which is either on premises or cloud hosted. So everything is available in one place. And you can single sign on into all these apps, desktops, and files without having to remember or or having to enter passwords again and again. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Heath for a quick demo on how TraitWare logs into Citrix virtual apps and desktops without needing a password. Heath, over to you.
Thank you, Anil. We're excited about everything that Citrix can do and how we can enhance the simple access to that simple way to access all of your tools that you need on a daily basis from wherever you are. In our current landscape of this instant move to work from anywhere, not just work from home sometimes, but work from anywhere, your example of how we need to authenticate people outside the corporate firewall at the edge of the network is exactly why we're a great fit to work with you. Some of the questions that our existing Citrix customers have asked us and how we were able to show we were able to help them is, how can we help reduce their password management reset costs? We've got use cases in place where we can show that we cut that password support cost by greater than 60%. We'll actually be able to run through simple examples of some of that cost savings after the demo. We know, that most people are coming to us with an understanding that 80% of security breaches are associated with stolen credentials or misused credentials. You have the username and password, and they're asking how we can help reduce that while meeting it or exceeding any kind of government regulation, whether it's to improve their security posture for a SOC 2 audit or FedRAMP mandate or any of that, while maintaining all the regulation for GDPR, privacy acts, et cetera, and implementing multi-factor authentication inside of those deployments. And then, I think you can talk to anyone and agree that we all experience some sort of password hell every time we have to create a new account somewhere that requires a password or managing that, even to the point of using some of the other solutions that are storing our passwords for us and then filling those in. We still have to manage them. So especially the IT departments, reducing that friction of how we reduce that frustration and risk of managing provisioning or deprovisioning legacy login. So those are some of the questions we've got and what we've been able to answer for people and how we do that across different environments, mainly with Citrix. So if you want to play the demonstration of a passwordless login to a Citrix environment, then we can explain how that works after.
Definitely. Let me play it on screen now.
TraitWare passwordless login to Citrix ADC, virtual apps, and desktops. Navigate to your Citrix portal login. You'll see the TraitWare QR screen. Open the TraitWare app on your mobile device. Choose the appropriate TraitWare account. Confirm your identity. Scan the QR code on your screen. You are now signed in to your Citrix storefront. You will be able to access all of your apps, such as Windows 10 Virtual Desktop. To find out more about TraitWare's passwordless MFA solution, search TraitWare on the Citrix Marketplace or visit TraitWare.com.
All right, so thanks for playing that, Anil. And to just give you a high-level view of what happened, to have multi-factor authentication, which we've all agreed is a must these days, you need to have something you are, something you have, or something you know to achieve at least 2 out of 3 of those. TraitWare has the ability to actually layer up to 4 or 5 different factors, maintaining all of those except one transparent to the user. In that login, you saw that a user was able to authenticate and sign into their Citrix environment in 3 touches from their mobile device, working either directly on their mobile device or to a separate screen of their desktop, laptop, etc., maintaining a multi-factor authenticated login in the process in a simple use case. We looked around the landscape of modern devices and modern technology and said, how do we create a login solution that eliminates passwords, but also does it without having to buy an extra hardware token or carry around another device. So we created a software-based multi-factor authentication solution that takes you passwordless, leveraging a device you're already carrying every day, your mobile phone or tablet or just any mobile device, working across iOS or Android for that in a unique way that creates a unique identity for you. We're able to leverage the biometrics that are native to that device in a way that maintains all the privacy regulation, because that biometric on the approved devices, such as an iOS device, never leaves the secure enclave. So we don't know what that mathematical representation is, nor does Apple or anybody else. It's just your representation. It maintains in your possession. We're just able to leverage that as something that you are as part of the solution. The TraitWare app is truly locked to that biometric authentication. It will not revert to the phone's master PIN or allow you to use a password just through a mobile web browser on your mobile device to get to the applications that have integrated TraitWare. We have a proprietary process of turning your mobile device into a unique token. We've received our second patent on how we do this, using different attributes of the way that you interact with your device in a way that separates you to 1 in 300 billion. So your phone becomes, in essence, a live biometric and a secure token in a unique way that provides the true multi-factor authentication, whether on a mobile or across a screen to a desktop or laptop. As you can see on the screen, and as Anil mentioned early on in the presentation, these are all the different environments that TraitWare has been verified for through Citrix Ready. So your Citrix virtual apps, desktops, your Citrix Gateway, etc. And we're excited for where things are going in the future, moving more towards the cloud, even with Citrix. But we can work with all of these as of today and have been tested and pre-integrated in different areas for that and can help you walk through that. So that is a high-level view of how we achieve a passwordless login to Citrix solutions in a multi-factor authenticated way. Anil, do you want to go ahead and move on to the next slide?
Right, and before we move to the next slide, I think let's take up a quick poll of questions, and I think that should really help set up the next few slides. So launching the first poll, you should be able to use your GoToWebinar control panel to select your options. The first question is the employee count in your organization, and you have options between below 100 to about 1,000. Let's give it a few more seconds. Right, let me close the poll now and share the results. And we can move to the next question. So do you already have a MFA solution in place or looking for something? Right, most of them seem like they already have it. And perfect. Let me share the results for that question. And we have one last question, is to know if your MFA solution is it hardware-based tokens or if it's soft tokens. Right. That's perfect. I think most of them have do not have uh, hardware-based tokens yet. So Heath, were you able to see the results?
I was, yeah. I took some quick notes down on that, so I think that can lead us into a quick run through of how we can still show you some cost savings moving to passwordless. So Daniil, you want to bring up the cost calculator, and I just want to make it clear too that this total cost of ownership calculator is live online, and any of you can play with it at your own time and your own leisure and tweak the numbers specific to your organization's needs. So based on the average number of employees that were shown, and let's put in a number of 200 employees, because there was a lot that were below 100 and a few that were above 1,000. So we'll just use a simple number of 200 employee count. So TraitWare is $3 a seat per month, provides passwordless MFA as well as IDP-based SSO if you need it, all included in that price. So there is, that covers what we think the cost estimate is getting it deployed is going to be. And then if you want to click on the company hard cost estimates. So since 69% did say yes that they're currently using an MFA, let's put an average cost, and I know that this number will be low, but let's put $2 in that box. No, not in the IDP box, but just in the one box next down. No, the current MFA cost. Go one box up, the one in the middle. There you go. So let's put $2 there, and then we'll leave the rest of them blank. And then, as Anil mentioned earlier in the webinar, the average help desk calls, anywhere from 20 to 50% of an organization has a help desk call per month. So we used an average number of 30% of total help desk calls per month inside of your organization. And in this example, we're using only 200 employees. Then we took a factor of only 30% of those help desk calls would be directly related to a password reset. So we're taking a small fraction of your total help desk calls directly related to a password reset. We believe this number is actually higher, but for this math equation, we're going to make sure that we're very conservative in this estimation. We know that through other people's research that the average cost of that call is around $70 per help desk ticket. So we can arrive to a cost savings figure based on those equations. Just as an example, Anil, do you want to click on the company soft cost estimates? We're not going to put any numbers in here, but just to show people what they can play with later. We know there's a cost to a password breach. It's over close to it's 3.65, I think, is the average cost of a breach for most enterprises, $1 million these days. Most recently, Capital One was fined $80 million for their breach and not using best practices. So just as other simple math, we know that the average time spent per week entering or resetting passwords based on what your password policy is about 12.5 minutes. We used an average hourly cost per employee of $30 an hour to come up with some soft cost numbers outside of the hard costs. And again, you can tweak these on your own. But moving down, just to show the cost savings, annual hard cost savings alone after paying for TraitWare. Oh, I don't know why I didn't do the math there. So on the hard cost savings. So can you make sure that the 2 is 2.00? Let's see if that fixes it. And then go ahead and scroll down. Well, the hard cost savings seem to net out at a 0 with the soft cost savings showing it. Yeah, I don't know why it's not doing the math correctly, but or let's just leave it 0. And if you've got the current MFA cost, then that would go away as well. But just leave it 0, Anil. we're not reflecting any of that. But, so at a 200 employee count, then it's a net zero to deploy TraitWare at the hard cost savings, with the total soft cost savings of $65,000 overall in productivity and reducing help desk tickets alone. After deploying TraitWare, you can save on all the help desk ticket calls. So that's a cost savings analysis. Again, you can play with that on your own and put in your exact numbers and move on from there.
Right, I'm just gonna redo this maybe after a refresh. Maybe I think we used 200 employees, I guess, and we put in $2 here, and yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I don't know why I didn't do the math the first time, but thanks for refreshing that, Anil. So yeah, so a total hard cost savings of almost $8,000 after deploying TraitWare with that. So thanks for rerunning through that.
No worries. Right.
So existing TraitWare Citrix joint customers that we have, we've successfully migrated customers from legacy login base. One in particular was using hardware-based tokens where they had one-time passcode generators that we were able to migrate them off of. In this particular use case, we reduced their password support calls by greater than 90% over a one-year period. They had system admins that were using anywhere from up to 5 individual unique logins paired with the individual hard token based MFA solution, and maintaining the management of those credentials and the hardware based token paired with those credentials was very cumbersome, very frustrating, and led to a lot of service desk incidents for them. So we were able to provide them a single pane of glass for those admins, maintaining the 5 unique identities to the different siloed accounts that they needed to access, meeting and exceeding all their MFA requirements in that process. And in the process of migrating them over to this and moving solutions to a passwordless token-based login, it moves you to the ability to have privileged access management and just-in-time access management, because you no longer have to provision or deprovision a set of credentials. You can provision or deprovision a token with a simple radio button tick box and grant access as needed, etc. Happy to run through it another time how that's done through an administrative panel. If anyone has questions on that, just reach out after the webinar and we can do that. But it does allow you to move to a privileged access management and just-in-time access management platform by moving to a token-based platform, which also reduces help desk ticket calls. So that's just some of the success we've already had with Citrix-based customers. Our value and differentiation, it's really, we see it as modern authentication. The time has come to use modern technology to reduce frustration and risk, as well as costs. We can provide passwordless single sign-on and MFA merged together. The end user logs in faster, and we reduce the help desk tickets. You don't have to remember passwords, don't have to change them. You no longer have to enforce a password policy because the solution does it for you. It's native to the technology, which it should be. Passwords can't be stolen or shared. If I don't have a password, I can't loan it out to my colleague. I can't have it phished, and I can't accidentally use the same one I use at work on a consumer site and have it stolen in a breach and then restuffed and sold on the black market. We can provide up to 2 to 4 factors instantly in the technology, maintaining transparency for the user in that process. And it's a unique to TraitWare dynamic token that is how we achieve exceeding all the password policies that you need. So go ahead and move on, Anil. Typically, we can take less than a day to set up the integrations. It's achieved through modern authentication standards, leveraging SAML 2.0 or OpenID Connect. There are different integrations that are available, as Anil mentioned earlier in the webinar, depending on how your environment is set up. Most of them are fairly standardized with the Citrix platform, but there can be unique instances, whether you're using a Radius server, etc. We can work with you to figure out the best way to integrate and make it plug and play for that. The onboarding of a user can be done in less than 3 steps. It's a very simple process to onboard a user. They'll never have a temporary password or anything for that account. They will be onboarded in a passwordless way and deployed and able to authenticate without ever having a password. We are not just creating one and obfuscating it from the user. We are truly passwordless from enrollment to use. And then this is just a very simple high-level architecture diagram that shows what we replicated in the video of a passwordless login to a Citrix environment. So just like you normally would, in simple terms, the easiest way to think about how TraitWare works is where there would normally be a username and password field box that would then trigger, for 69% of you, entering your credentials there would then trigger your whatever MFA process you're using. We replace that MFA box with a SAML or OpenID Connect. In most of the cases, it's a SAML integration that is certificate pinned, etc., that does an instant redirect to a one-time QR code. The QR code is a single use. It is essentially the one-time passcode that you would enter from your MFA that you're currently using or not. It does not have any identity payload in the QR. All that is a one-time code that associates your TraitWare mobile app with the service that you're trying to authenticate to. The identity payload is then released from the authentication server or the SAML integration to that login page. And as you saw in the video, it happens in milliseconds. That would then allow you to sign into your Citrix workspace environment, virtual desktops, etc. So that is a simple high-level view of how we integrate and replace legacy login at the front door.
Right, I think that's perfect and a good segue to move to the questions. I think we have about 4 minutes to take up the questions. I see a lot of questions in the questions panel. Let me try and take up a few. The first question was, as a business owner, I'm concerned about the bottom line. What are the financial benefits? I think we went through that in the cost calculator demo, but we'll definitely reach out with more details on that. Moving on. So one attendee has asked, they already have an MFA in place, but it's addition to passwords and not replacing them. So could you speak of the few options as a best practice?
Yeah, so depending on how, most situations that already have MFA in place, most of the MFA that's existing today was built as a layer cake on top of existing legacy login. So you're adding just an extra factor of some sort, whether it's hardware-based, software-based, one-time passcode, magic links, etc., in the background, but it did not eliminate the #1 threat vector, which is credentials or the management of those credentials. So, in that essence, we would be a replacement for that existing MFA solution that can be achieved through this SAML integration. And then you would move your people over to the passwordless login to that environment, anywhere that TraitWare is integrated at that gateway. Depending on what your environment looks like, we would have to have a bit of a discovery conversation to understand all the places that you need to use it with and where we fit and where we don't fit with that. And hopefully that answers the high level question of that. But if you have, I'll expand a little bit. If you have an existing IDP like Okta that you're using, but was still using legacy login for that, we have the ability to sit in front of Okta as the passwordless MFA login to Okta. So if you have, whether it's Ping or Okta or ForgeRock, one of the other IDPs already in place, you don't have to rip and replace all of that. Even Azure IDP, et cetera. We have a sync tool with Azure AD, et cetera. So we can just sit in front of that as a simple integration.
Perfect. And I'm just moving quickly. What if you lose your phone or the mobile device?
Yeah, so it's a recovery process that's set up however your enterprise deems that that's necessary to re-register the user. This is true with any multi-factor authentication platform. If you have another mobile app-based authenticator, you have the same issue. If you have a hardware token, whether it's a USB style token or one of the other one-time passcode tokens generators, if they lose it, you've got to replace that. With the mobile phone, your users are going to replace their phone no matter what, and then it's just a matter of re-registering them to that token in whatever identity assurance standard that you use based on NIST standards or not to re-register them. There's different ways to get there. But the unique thing to TraitWare is their access and their authorizations, et cetera, are established with the authentication server, not with the token. So once they're re-registered to a token, all of their permissions are instantly live again, where some of the existing MFA solutions, you have to reestablish the relationship with each service to re-register them. So it's a very seamless, simple process to re-register someone to their token if the token is broken or misplaced.
Perfect. And there's one question if the solution works with NetScaler, and to answer that, this particular integration for Citrix virtual apps and desktops is through Citrix NetScaler's SAML integration point. So it definitely works with ADC and Gateway. And I think we are out of time. There are a lot more questions coming in. I think we could reach out to the audience one-on-one for them. And with that said, we can conclude this webinar. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who took the time to attend today's webinar. Great questions, great demo, and Trait, thanks for joining in and explaining the advantages of going passwordless and how your solution integrates with Citrix.
Thank you very much for having us today, Anil, and we look forward to answering the questions, and we will get through them and get your answers back to you on a one-on-one basis. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.